Prime Minister Stephen Harper attended a United Nations climate change conference a few days ago. As he is rejecting the Kyoto Protocol on a world stage, just wondering about your reaction to Mr. Harper's comments there, and is the Conservative government's credibility floundering?
Well, the Conservative government hasn't had much credibility on climate change since before they got elected. It was Stephen Harper who described it as a socialist money-sucking operation even before he was elected, and he did everything he could to undermine any climate change work that had been done by the previous Liberal government. The appearance in New York gave him the opportunity perhaps to redeem himself a little bit, but he didn't take that opportunity. Instead, basically what he did was say, never mentioned the word Kyoto in his entire speech at the United Nations, a United Nations process, didn't talk about what after Kyoto would look like, and said basically, well, we shouldn't have these constraints. We shouldn't have fixed targets. We should actually almost do it on a voluntary basis, and we shouldn't depend so much on the United Nations. A strange thing to say at the United Nations.
Well, Prime Minister Harper said Canada will become the 7th member of this Asian-Pacific Partnership, a group nicknamed the Anti-Kyoto Partnership. Now, these countries account for nearly half of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and that allows them to set their own goals with no enforcement mechanism. Now, is this simply another rebuild of his doomed environmental legislation of 2006, or a shrewd strategy to be bundled into the speech from the throne due next month?
I think what this is about is trying to avoid talking about what happens after Kyoto by going into a group which sounds like it's doing the right thing, which is these Asia-Pacific countries, but all they're doing is putting out voluntary targets. There are no timelines, there's no constraint, there's no penalty, so China can join in, the United States can join in, because they don't have to do anything. And I think it's an attempt to change the channel, to divert attention from the fact he's not trying to figure out what we do after the Kyoto period, after 2012. So this is not a serious operation. No environmental organization in the world thinks that the Asia-Pacific 6 or 7 with Canada's participation is anything more than a talk shop, because they make no commitments to do anything, and they won't do anything.
What do you expect or hope for or even demand from the speech to the throne in terms of environmental initiatives?
I have very, very low expectations of the speech from the throne. The Harper government has tried to introduce a clean air bill a year ago. It was laughed out. The opposition parties, including the Liberals, rewrote the bill to give it real teeth. The Conservatives failed and refused to introduce the new bill, which would have had some real teeth for climate change and for clean air. I think they've used up their bullets. I think they've changed the minister. They can't change the minister again. They've already got rid of Rona Ambrose and brought in John Baird. They have brought in a series of regulations which are pretty toothless. I don't think there's a third act. I don't think there's a, let me try again for the third time to get this right. So I'm not expecting anything very significant in the speech from the throne.
On Tuesday this week, CBC Radio asked Elizabeth May should a coal mine be opened in her riding in Nova Scotia, that bringing with it hundreds of jobs. Her response was no, citing pollution implications of the coal burning rather than creating jobs that would benefit her community. Do you think her reaction was the right one?
I think that her reaction could have been more subtle. That is to say, if we can somehow link up the opening of a coal mine with the creation of coal-burning plants which sequester, in other words, capture the greenhouse gases, then coal is not necessarily a bad thing. As long as you just simply burn coal the old way and produce lots of pollution plus lots of greenhouse gases, it's not a good thing. The problem is not in the coal mining, the problem is in what you do with the coal when you put it into a power plant. So I think her answer could have been a little more conditional, that it's not the coal in itself, it's how we deal with it when we use it particularly for electrical power generation.
Mr. Harper said Canada will sign on the Asia-Pacific Partnership with an October 15th meeting in Delhi, India. Now, if the Prime Minister is not on the right environmental track with this partnership, how would the Liberal Party handle the issue?
Well, I think there are two issues. One is what we would do internationally, and that is that we would recognize that Canada made an obligation to the United Nations under the Kyoto Accord, and that we've got to try and do our best to get as close as we can within the Kyoto period to honor it. Second part is we've got to move beyond that after 2012 to bring in the Americans and the Chinese and the Indians and other people within the United Nations process. But we all have to take unto ourselves goals, and we have got to make commitments that we're going to reduce greenhouse gases. Otherwise, nobody's going to do anything. Why would anybody else do it if we're not prepared to do it? So I think this Asia-Pacific business is a sheer diversion, and I think he's just trying to get out of what will have to happen in Bali in December, which is when the next United Nations meeting on climate change is, when we really get down to some hard decisions.
I've heard in the last few days that there's a bit of rumbling going on as far as ramping up for the election is concerned. Any predictions there?
My prediction is that it won't happen, simply because no one party is in a terrific position right now to clean up and break out in a general election. The polls are pretty stagnant. The government risks losing the government or coming back with another minority, which won't suit Mr. Harper at all, because it means he can't threaten an election then. He's already tried that, done it. The Liberals are clearly not in majority territory yet. The NDP, they had a blip in Quebec, but I don't think that translates into a big breakout. They've got more seats to lose than to gain, and the Bloc is having a terrible time. So I'm not quite sure why any party would want an election right now. I think it's a lot of media hype, frankly.